They said it was just a rock, a piece of debris that fell from the sky, but rocks don't hum in the dark, rocks don't bend time around them, and rocks don't whisper your name when you're alone. We should have left it buried, but we didn't. It started in the Nevada desert, 200 miles from anything resembling civilization. A meteor shower had lit up the night sky, streaks of fire carving across the stars. Most burned up in the atmosphere, harmless fireworks for anyone watching. But one didn't. At 2:14 a.m., radar picked up a single object that pierced the sky and slammed into the desert floor. No explosion, no crater, just silence. By morning, a team was dispatched. Soldiers, scientists, a handful of government officials who had the authority to keep it quiet. The media never heard about it. As far as the world was concerned, it never happened. The first report came from Captain Elaine Marrow, the commanding officer on site. Her words were simple, direct, and chilling. The object does not behave as matter should. It is smooth, perfectly smooth. No seams, no markings, no scratches, despite the velocity of impact. It sits half buried in the sand, and the sand doesn't touch it. Not really. It's like the grains bend around its surface as if repelled by something invisible. When we approach, instruments fail, compasses spin, radios cut out. The object hums when the sun goes down. That was the first red flag. By day 2, they had cleared the area, established a perimeter, and built a temporary facility around the site. The object was 22 feet wide, 10 feet tall. An oval shape, blacker than obsidian, and it absorbed light like a void. Looking at it for too long made your head ache. Dr. Sarah Kinsey was the first physicist to touch it. She placed her hand against the surface. She expected a cold stone. Instead, she felt warmth and a vibration, faint like a pulse. "It's alive," she whispered. The soldiers laughed nervously. No one else did. On the third night, something strange happened. Private Daniels, one of the guards, claimed he heard his name spoken in the dark. He swore it came from the object. His squad mates brushed it off. Desert winds played tricks on your ears. But then, he vanished. His rifle was found near the perimeter. His footprints led straight to the object, and then they simply stopped. No return prints, no signs of struggle, just gone. That was when the project changed. It was no longer anomalous meteor debris. It was classified as Erebus, the object that shouldn't exist. By the end of the first week, the base had doubled in size. Trucks rolled in daily, hauling equipment, generators, lead shielding, and enough firepower to take on an army. The scientists weren't sure if it was dangerous, but the military wasn't taking chances. Dr. Kinsey led the first real experiment. She placed high-frequency scanners around the object, running them day and night. At first, the data was nonsense, waveforms that didn't match any known particle or field. But then she noticed something, a rhythm. Every night, precisely at 3:03 a.m., the object emitted a pulse of energy, invisible to the naked eye, but strong enough to scramble electronics. The pulse lasted exactly 1 second. When she slowed down the data, stretched the waveforms, she realized it wasn't just a pulse. It was a signal, a message. Her team worked day and night to decode it. And after 2 weeks, they had something. 3 words, over and over, not from here. By now, paranoia was spreading through the base. Soldiers reported nightmares. Scientists claimed to see flashes of strange landscapes when they closed their eyes. Endless fields of black stone, skies of red lightning, and towers that bent like liquid. One man, a technician named Howard, had a breakdown during breakfast. He screamed that the object was calling to him. Before anyone could stop him, he ran straight into the chamber and threw himself at it. Witnesses said he vanished the moment his skin touched its surface. Like a shadow, swallowed by a deeper shadow. No remains, no trace, just gone. After that, the chamber was sealed and the project director, Colonel Price, issued strict orders. No physical contact. No exceptions, but the object didn't need to be touched to affect them. On the 15th night, Dr. Kinsey woke to find her bunk filled with sand. She coughed and clawed at her sheets, but the sand kept pouring in from nowhere, spilling from the ceiling, the floor, even her own mouth. She screamed, and the others rushed in. When they turned on the lights, there was nothing. No sand, no sign of it ever being there. The medical officer diagnosed her with stress-induced hallucinations. But Kinsey knew better. She felt the hum of the object in her chest, stronger than ever. It wasn't just sitting there anymore, it was waking up. At this point, Colonel Price called for reinforcements. He wanted tanks, air support, even drones. His orders were clear. If it moves, if it changes, destroy it. But the problem was, it couldn't be destroyed. Explosives failed, bullets flattened, lasers scattered. Every weapon they tried simply bent around it, like the laws of reality refused to let it be harmed. And then, one night, the object changed on its own. The hum deepened into a low, resonant tone that shook the entire facility. Lights flickered, metal groaned, and when it stopped, the object was no longer smooth. It had opened. A seam now ran across its surface, glowing with faint white light. The impossible object was no longer just sitting there. It was becoming something else. And everyone in the base knew, in their bones, that once it fully opened, nothing on Earth would ever be the same again. When the seam appeared, no one slept. The chamber lights stayed on all night as soldiers and scientists circled the object, weapons raised, instruments humming. The glowing line down its center pulsed like a heartbeat, steady, patient, almost alive. Colonel Price barked orders, but his voice carried something it hadn't before: fear. Dr. Kinsey leaned closer, eyes wide behind her glasses. "It's not opening outward," she murmured. "It's opening inward, like a door folding into itself." Price snapped at her to step back, but she didn't move. Her breath fogged on the surface, even though the air was hot and dry. Then, at exactly 3:03 a.m., the hum returned. Louder than before, the walls shook. Alarms wailed as computers crashed, screens bursting into static, and the seam widened, only a few inches, but enough to see inside. Not metal, not stone, something else, something that shimmered, as if reality itself was thinner beyond that line. A faint glow spilled out, casting long shadows across the chamber. Private Mercer, young and reckless, whispered, "It's beautiful." "Doctor," Kinsey whispered back, "it's impossible." The next day, the base was divided. The scientists wanted to study it, the soldiers wanted to blow it to hell, but both groups had the same problem. No one could agree what it actually was. Some said a vessel, others a weapon. A few whispered it wasn't from the stars at all, but from somewhere deeper. Colonel Price doubled security, ordering guards at every door, patrols every hour. No one in, no one out. But still, things went missing. First, it was objects. A wrench left on the floor would vanish when no one was looking. A clipboard set on a desk would simply be gone by morning. Then it was people. Sergeant Wallace disappeared during a routine patrol. His radio kept transmitting static, but when they traced the signal, it led straight to the chamber. His boots were found by the entrance. Nothing else. That night, a rumor spread through the base like wildfire. The object was hungry. On the 19th day, Dr. Kinsey made a breakthrough. She had been analyzing the signal, the pulse at 3:03 a.m., frame by frame. It wasn't random. It was structured. A language. And when she slowed it down, reversed it, and filtered out the noise, she found something chilling. Not from here anymore. Now it said, "Let me out." The scientists argued until dawn. Some believed it was intelligent, a prisoner trapped in the object. Others believed it was bait, a trick designed to lure them closer. Colonel Price made his decision. He ordered the chamber sealed permanently. No more experiments, no more risks. But that night, the object didn't wait for permission. At 3:03 a.m., the hum shook the ground like an earthquake. Lights burst, glass shattered, and the seam yawned wide. Soldiers raised their weapons. Alarms blared. And for the first time, something stepped out. It wasn't a creature. Not exactly. It was a shape, shifting and unstable, like liquid shadows coalescing into form. It flickered between states, tall, short, human, inhuman, like it couldn't decide what it wanted to be. The soldiers opened fire. Bullets ripped through the chamber, ricocheting off walls. But every round that touched the thing vanished. Not deflected, not blocked, just erased, as though they had never existed. The shape turned its head, if it even had a head, toward the nearest soldier, Private Mercer. Mercer froze. His rifle clattered to the floor. And then he smiled. Not with his mouth, but with his eyes. Like something else was behind them now. He spoke in a voice that wasn't his own, a deep, resonant tone that rattled every bone in the room. "You found the door!" Chaos erupted. Soldiers dragged Mercer away, screaming at the thing to stop. But it didn't move. It didn't need to. The object behind it pulsed again, brighter than ever. And one by one, the lights in the base flickered out, plunging everything into darkness. When the generators roared back to life, the chamber was empty. The shape was gone. The object was sealed again, and Private Mercer was dead. After that, no one argued anymore. The scientists were terrified. The soldiers were ready to abandon the base. Colonel Price refused both. He demanded answers, but answers didn't come. Only more nightmares. Men and women dreamed of endless deserts under black suns, of towers that breathed, of oceans made of glass. Every dream ended the same way. A whisper. "We are coming." On the 24th night, Dr. Kinsey found something she couldn't ignore. Hidden deep in the signal was a second message, a countdown. It wasn't counting down in hours, not even in days, it was counting in seconds. By her calculations, the countdown would end in exactly 72 hours. No one knew what would happen then, but everyone knew it wouldn't be good. Colonel Price finally called Washington. He demanded evacuation, airstrikes, nuclear options. But the response was silence, not static, not interference, just silence. Every line, every channel, dead. The object wasn't just inside their base anymore, it was in their systems, their signals, their world, and it was waiting. On the 25th night, the object changed again. This time, it didn't. It sang, a low, resonant tone that carried across the desert for miles. People in distant towns woke up, screaming, clutching their ears. Birds fell from the sky. Wolves howled until their throats bled. Inside the base, every pane of glass shattered, every bulb exploded, and through the chaos, the object's seam widened. Once more, Dr. Kinsey stared into the light and whispered the words no one wanted to hear. "It's not a door we found, it's a lock, and we just broke it." The countdown ticked on. Every second that passed was another heartbeat closer to something no one could define. Dr. Kinsey stayed locked in her lab, running simulations, scribbling equations, whispering to herself like a woman possessed. Sleep was a luxury she no longer remembered. Colonel Price demanded answers, slamming his fists on the table during briefings. But Kinsey had only one. "We opened something we shouldn't have. It's not coming. It's already here." By the 26th night, the base was fraying at the edges. Soldiers were deserting their posts, staring blankly into space, muttering about strange voices in their heads. One guard claimed he saw his dead wife waiting outside the perimeter fence, waving him closer. He nearly walked into the desert before his partner tackled him to the ground. Another swore he watched the stars rearrange themselves into words. Leave, but there was nowhere to go. The roads out of the desert were gone, erased as though they had never existed. Maps showed empty white where highways once ran. Satellite phones displayed static when coordinates were entered. It was as if the object had cut the base out of reality, trapping them inside a shrinking bubble of existence. Dr. Kinsey finally cracked the second layer of the signal. The countdown wasn't just a timer. It was a sequence, a set of coordinates, but they weren't coordinates on Earth. They pointed somewhere else, somewhere beyond. When she told Price, his face went pale. "You're saying it's a beacon?" Kinsey nodded. "Not a door, not a lock, a flare. We didn't trap something inside. We told them to find us." The next night, the object pulsed brighter than ever. The hum returned, not steady this time, but frantic, urgent, alive. And then the sky changed. At 3:03 a.m., every star vanished. One by one, pinpricks of light winked out until the sky was blacker than ink. The moon dissolved like smoke. The Milky Way collapsed into nothing. Above the desert base, there was only a void, and in that void, shapes moved. Not ships, not creatures. Something larger, older, vast shadows that shifted like mountains swimming through the deep. They had no eyes, no faces, no forms the human mind could grasp, but every person in the base felt them watching. In the silence that followed, a voice pressed into their skulls. "You're not ready?" Panic erupted. Soldiers fired into the sky, bullets vanishing into nothing. Alarms wailed. Radios screamed with feedback. And the object laughed. Not with sound, but with vibration. The walls shook with a mocking rhythm, a resonance that carried one message. We opened it. We cannot close it. By day 28, the base had collapsed into chaos. Food stores rotted overnight. The water turned black. Generators refused to run. People began turning on each other. Private Jenkins accused Lieutenant Harris of being one of them. Harris denied it, until his skin rippled like liquid under the light. Then he smiled, and in that deep, resonant voice that was not his own, whispered, "We walk among you." They killed him, but when his body hit the ground, it dissolved into ash. Colonel Price tried to rally his men, but his words rang hollow. Everyone had seen too much, everyone had heard too much, and every clock in the base ticked down the same numbers. 36 hours. That night, Dr. Kinsey stood alone in the chamber. She placed her hand against the object's surface, ignoring Price's orders. She whispered, "What are you?" The seam pulsed with light. The air grew thick, heavy, charged. And the answer came, not in sound, but in thought. "We are the first. We are the last. We are the reason your kind dreams of gods and demons. We should not exist, but now, neither should you." Kinsey stumbled back, trembling. Her eyes were wide, unblinking, almost vacant. When she finally spoke, her voice was not her own. It wasn't meant to be found, it was meant to be forgotten. By the 29th night, there was no denying it. Reality itself was breaking down. Walls bent like rubber, floors stretched and shrank, time slipped. Hours vanished in seconds, or seconds dragged into eternities. Soldiers fired at shadows that weren't there. Some found themselves walking through doors that opened into landscapes of alien skies, red lightning crackling across black stone deserts. One man walked into the mess hall and stepped out into a sea of stars. They never saw him again. The countdown reached 12 hours. Colonel Price gathered the survivors in the command center. His uniform was torn, his eyes hollow, but his voice was steady. Whatever comes through when that thing hits zero, we can't let it leave this place. If it does, it won't just be us. It'll be the whole world. No one argued. They all knew the truth. The object wasn't the threat. It was the invitation, and when the countdown reached 6 hours, the object split wide open. Not like a door, not like a lock, like an egg. And what came out wasn't from any world humanity was meant to see. The countdown hit 6 hours. The object split open, light spilling across the desert like liquid fire. Shadows stretched, bent, and warped into grotesque shapes on the walls of the base, and something stepped out. It wasn't a creature, not at first. It was a distortion, a fold in reality itself, like someone had torn a hole in the world and left the edges flapping in the wind. It shimmered, flickered, bled colors that didn't exist, and from that impossible wound, something crawled. The soldiers who saw it couldn't describe it. Some said it had wings of bone. Others swore it had no shape at all, just endless mouths, whispering in unison. To each person it looked different, as though it was tailored to their deepest fear. But all of them agreed on one thing. It was alive, and it knew them. Colonel Price ordered the strike. Gunfire lit the chamber, deafening in the enclosed space. Bullets vanished into the creature's form like stones dropped in water. Rockets exploded, shredding steel and concrete, but the thing only grew larger. Dr. Kinsey screamed over the chaos. "You can't kill it. It's not made of matters. It's made of thought." The words froze the room. Thought. An idea. A concept that should never have existed. The object wasn't a weapon. It was a seed. And now the seed had hatched. This countdown ticked to 4 hours. By then, the creature had spread through this base like a plague. Reality bent wherever it moved. A hallway could stretch for miles. A door could open into the ocean. Soldiers found themselves drowning in rooms that had no water. One man raised his weapon and suddenly aged decades in an instant, collapsing into dust. Another stared too long into the creature's shifting form, and his eyes began to melt, dripping down his cheeks as he whispered, "I see it now. I see everything." Colonel Price pulled Kinsey into the command center. His voice was a growl. "There has to be a way to stop this. You said it shouldn't exist? Then make it not exist." Kinsey's hands shook as she scrawled equations on the board, her voice breaking. "We can't destroy it, but maybe we can unmake it," she explained. "If the object was a thought, then it could only survive as long as someone believed in it. If they could collapse that thought, erase the memory of it, then maybe it would vanish back into the void it came from. But there was a cost. Everyone who had seen it would have to forget. Every witness, every soldier, every scientist, everyone. In the base, including her." The countdown hit 1 hour. The base was falling apart. Rooms twisted into impossible angles. Gravity shifted like tides. The stars outside the dome flickered on and off, as though reality itself was losing power. The creature's voice filled every corridor. "You cannot undo me. I am what lies between your dreams. I am the shadow of your gods. I am the end that waits." In silence, men fell to their knees, clutching their heads. Others turned their weapons on themselves rather than listen. But Price stood tall. "Do it, Kinsey, whatever it takes. End this." Kinsey sat at her terminal, fingers flying across the keys. She built a device, a psychic erasure pulse tied directly to the object itself. It wouldn't kill the creature. It wouldn't even touch it, but it would wipe every mind within 100 miles clean of the memory. The creature would become impossible. Unthought. And then, maybe, it would unravel. The countdown hit 30 seconds. The base shook violently, walls splitting, ceilings collapsing. The object pulsed like a heart, each beat louder than the last. Kinsey's hand hovered over the activation switch. Price looked at her, his voice steady. "Do it," she hesitated. "And if it doesn't work," he met her eyes, "then no one will be left to remember we failed." 10 seconds. The creature tore through the command center wall, its form blotting out the world behind it. It filled the room with its presence, a storm of light, shadow, and whispers that clawed at the edges of sanity. Price raised his rifle one last time, even knowing it was useless. Kinsey slammed the switch. A flash, not of light, of forgetting. Names. Dissolved. Faces vanished. Memories unraveled like threads pulled from a tapestry. The soldiers screamed as everything they knew slipped away. Childhoods, families, their own names, all gone. And then, finally, the memory of the object itself burned away. The creature shrieked a soundless roar that shook the void. Its form unraveled, collapsing into nothing, folding in on itself until it was less than a shadow, less than a thought, less than a dream. And then... silence. When the survivors awoke, they were scattered across the desert, confused, empty. Some still wore uniforms, some still clutched weapons, but none of them remembered why. The base was gone. The object was gone. All that remained was sand, stars, and a faint hum in the distance, a hum no one could quite place. Dr. Kinsey opened her eyes beneath the dawn sky. She didn't remember her name. She didn't remember the lab, the countdown, or the impossible thing she had helped unmake. But as she stood, one thought drifted through her mind, a thought she didn't know wasn't hers. We are the first. We are the last. We should not exist. She shook her head, brushing it away. Just an echo. Just nothing. And somewhere, far beyond the stars, something stirred, waiting, because some thoughts can never truly be forgotten.